Hello and welcome to the Dicebreaker podcast. Welcome back to the Dicebreaker podcast. We've done 4 of these now. This is episode 5. I am Matt Jarvis. I am joined today by 3 more of the team. 3 more of the team. You've seen their faces before. They're familiar.
Literally the exact same cast as the last episode.
Don't ruin. Yeah, but some people might not have seen last week's episode.
It's true.
Every time, fresh faces. And you always come with fresh conversation, so in many ways, you're brand new people. Wheels, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you very much. I'm currently sat next to a big box of miniatures that I'm excited to talk about, and just happy to be on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent stuff. Alex Meehan, how are you?
I am raring to go. Yeah, that's probably about it, to be honest.
Wow, it really comes through. I'm raring to go. Yep. Alex Lolies, how are you today?
Hello, I'm well. I recently lost the I can't talk.
Will to live? Where? What?
Never mind. This is episode 5. That's a hand's worth of episodes. There you go.
Yeah.
It is a round hand. It was better than the last comparison we made to Star Wars and something. And someone immediately in the comments asked who would be the Jar Jar Binks of the team, which I think would be Alex Meehan, right? Like, Jar Jar Binks is an Alex Meehan character.
I think it's more Alex Lolies than Alex Meehan.
Really?
If I'm perfectly honest, yeah.
Don't even know who that is.
Exactly. And if it worked that well with Mr. Blobby, then...
You all know what Star Wars character I would be.
You'd be Jabba the...
Oh, Jesus. Lolies. Taking no prisoners.
Let's get this straight, right? On this podcast episode, not only have I been compared to Jar Jar Binks, perhaps the most hated Star Wars character in the history of ever, I've also now been called Jabba the Hutt, who is an overweight crime lord who looks like a
slug.
To be fair, that does sound like a bunch of your previous RPG characters mixed together.
I think the thing with Jar Jar Binks is, like, if anyone could redeem Jar Jar Binks, it would be the voice of Tim the Goblin. Because you would probably turn him into some scampish, you know...
No, I want to be either Boss Nass, or I want to be Salacious
I mean, Boss
Crumb.
Nass is the middle point between Jar Jar Binks and Jabba the Hutt. Anyway, welcome to our weekly Star Wars podcast, in which we discuss the Phantom Menace.
Only the fact.
Exclusively. The Phantom podcast.
Only the Gungan sections. No, we're here to talk board games and tabletop RPGs and probably a load of other stuff that doesn't have anything to do with either of those, if you couldn't tell already. So let's kick off and go around the group with what you've been playing. Let's go in reverse order. Alex Lolies, what have you been playing this week?
What have I been playing? Not much. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if it's the same with you guys, but I feel like, you know, at the beginning when this all started, everyone was like, "Oh my god, let's play board games," and I was literally playing games like every single night for several hours. And now it's like dwindled down to like people won't even like take their turns in like or Scrabble games, and like no one's really around. And then I guess when people are around, I'm not always up for either. But I have been playing D&D. Stranger Things, the starter pack, which has been interesting. I've never played that before.
This is like
wow.
So the D&D Stranger Things kit it's based on the D&D they play in Stranger Things, right? You're not playing as the kids. You're playing as like the kids' characters.
Yeah. So the characters are all like pre-made. So we're all like level 3 as well. So I'm playing a half orc. A ranger, half-orc ranger, and I named myself Awesome, and it was supposed to be like a one-off session, but we played for about 5 or 6 hours, and we hadn't quite gotten to the end yet, so we're gonna have another session to finish it up. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I've ever been involved in something that's like that before, where it's like all kind of pre-made and stuff. So yeah,
I mean,
I had been thinking about maybe potentially like running something like that myself at some point, because it's obviously supposed to be like the starter pack. But actually, I feel like there's a lot more information for you to take on board if you're like starting out in D&D. Because like I know your characters are like pre-made and all that, but like my character had just so much writing on all these special abilities they had because they were at level 3, and I was like, I can just about like take this in now when I've played some D&D before. If I'd never played before and then all this information was like put on me, I don't know if that was like, if that be information overload. So yeah, I think that's kind of, it's a strange one. Have any of you played something like that before?
It's a strange one.
Yeah, stranger
there,
thing.
yeah. Well, I've never played with pre-gen characters. Do you know if there's at the end of it like moves you into the like the proper D&D box set, or is it just kind of like a thing in and of itself?
No idea.
It was set up like a one shot, I think. Like it's supposed to be sort of one and done, but then you can use the character sheets as much as you want. But I think with pretty much anything in D&D, like you can just create whatever you want at the end of it, so it doesn't really need to have that kind of like jumping off point, I guess. But
yeah, I suppose it's just I don't know, I guess it's personal preference, but it feels weird to play as like the characters created by fictional characters for a TV show and then like you're taking control of them. But it would be the same if I suddenly had to play as someone else's character in D&D, because I don't know, half the thing with D&D is making your alter ego or whatever.
I think that's a big part of it for me, is that I think that was one of the things that most attracted me to D&D, or like RPGs in general, was just being able to create something that's like based off a side of you, or based on someone maybe you've always wanted to be, or just something crazy, like, I don't know, like a tiny little goblin boy. Wins everyone.
Who would make a character like that?
it is weird that like speaking as someone who's not the biggest D&D fan, like I think creating your character is pretty much the most fun aspect of Dungeons and Dragons. Like a lot of the time I'll make something like I'm only really invested in the campaign because I'm really invested in the character I've made, and I do appreciate, although it's quite convoluted, I do appreciate the depth of options available in character creation in D&D. So I think it is weird that when you're introducing someone into the hobby for the first time, like they're just sort of given a sheet. Like I know it sort of breaks down a barrier, but it is weird to sort of like take out one of the main sort of interesting aspects of the game.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
No, you.
But I was gonna say, when I first had my first ever game of D&D, our DM was really good in that he kind of let us pick, like, you know, I think I was a tiefling something, I can't even remember what the thing was, but I was a tiefling something, and we kind of got to pick that bit of it. So we picked if we were a bard or like whatever else the like races and classes were, and then he made the sheets for us based on that, but we kind of created a part of it, and then obviously like created the look and everything else ourselves. So it was like, I think that was a bit nicer, because it was a way for me to kind of learn the ropes to a certain extent, but like have an input, but not be like over informed with all the info that you get in D&D.
Cool. All right, if that's just about all you've played, Lolies.
That's about it. Yeah.
All right, Alex Meehan, you're up. What have you been playing?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, what's the latest on Scythe?
We go to our Eyes in the Skies now for the weekly Scythe report from Alex Meehan.
Yeah, I'm in the chopper.
Chopper the droid.
Yeah, Chopper the droid has suddenly become enormous, and I'm riding around inside of him. Just throwing eggs, whapping eggs.
Robot Vor.
No! Wheels! Matt Jarvis.
Sorry,
is
crack on,
like,
man.
this has gone off the rails. Yeah, funnily enough, I haven't actually had a chance to play Scythe this week. I've got plans to play it later this week, so I can like imagine maybe what it will be like.
How about you just tell us what you've actually been playing this week?
I'm envisioning a win. Probably not. No, I've been playing my friend and we played Suro of the Seas.
Yeah.
That's a good game.
Which is a version of Suro, which I believe Mr. Whelan has talked about before on this here podcast.
I've talked about the original. I haven't talked about it overseas, although I have played it. It's kind of like a sequel almost, isn't it? It just sort of adds a new rule set on top.
So classic Suro is a game where you have to maneuver across a board using like tiles with lines drawn on them and avoid hitting other players' pawns or getting like on a path where it leads you off the board. Whereas like Suro of the Seas is that, but also it adds to it with like additional elements of dragons and sea monsters. So every time you start the game, you roll to place dragons on the board, and then you have to essentially avoid the dragons and avoid other players and not, get led off the board as well. So it's like the base game but added. And I would say playing with just 2 players, like I'm very happy to play that game because it works really well with the additional dragons. Because I would not play the original Suro if it was just 2 people.
Yeah, it's
a
bit dull too.
It would be boring because like you've got this enormous board and you could be on either side of it, and then it could be like ages until anything vaguely exciting happens.
It just kind of simulates having other people on the board, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does almost, because like if you're adjacent to a dragon at any point, you just die. So in some ways it's quite harsh because they'll move during like the game if a certain number is rolled on a set of dice, and one minute you're like, oh, I'm high and dry, and the next minute, sorry, you're just going to go into a dragon on your next turn. But it's so quick to set up that it doesn't, again, like the elimination aspect doesn't really affect it that much. Like, it's still fun to play. Also, it's really gorgeous. Like, the board is really well illustrated. The little boats, there are little plastic boats that you play with, look really nice. Also, Calliope Games, I think they're called, the publisher, they included a booklet with like their other games in it. I have never seen a more beautifully made booklet than that. Like, seriously, it's just like a product booklet, but like it's lovingly crafted. Like the paper, like it's card, like the card is really like nice, and the illustrations inside.
Got a Core Spelly press kit here, if that helps. Ooh, delicious! Look at that.
This works really well on the audio version of the podcast. Just the Dicebreaker team describe good-looking booklets. Oh, this one's shiny.
Ooh, look at the cardstock on this bad boy.
It's like one of those books you get when you're a kid that have the little different textiles on them, like the fluffy bit and maybe the shiny bit.
Those are great.
Yeah, but don't mock me. I really liked it. I was impressed. Other than that, I've been playing games with Mr. Jarvis.
That's right.
Yeah. We played some games on Tabletop Simulator, did we not, Mr. Jarvis?
We did. We played a couple of deck builders last night, which I enjoyed very much.
Yes. We played Legendary Alien Encounters.
Which went really well.
Oh, it was so bad. Like,
for some reason, I don't believe you.
We played a couple times. The first time we made it, 3 turns in, maybe being?
Is Legendary co-op?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
there are advanced rules in the Alien version for if someone gets killed, they can come back as an alien, which is quite fun. And then the expansion lets someone play as the Alien Queen. But we were playing just together, which was hard enough as it was, really.
yeah, that game does not mess about. Like,
I feel like I haven't, I really want to play more co-op deck builders, because me and Loli streamed the co-op version of Star Realms a couple of months back. It was really, really fun. You don't often get to play a deck builder where you're not just trying to slam on the other person.
Star Realms is crap, though, isn't it?
Oi! Get out of here!
Nah, Star Realms
Star Realms is the
Deliberately.
best game.
is good. It is very good.
And I will stand by that.
I taught someone how to play
best
Star
game.
Realms for the first time a couple of days ago.
Who, Toto?
Yes, I taught Toto how to play Star Realms. He was terrible at it. But it was great because I beat him like 3 times in a row. So
No, that. Yeah, we played some games of that and they did not go well. At one point, we were playing with some more people, Alien, that is, and we were just essentially all in a room that was absolutely stuffed to the brim with aliens. Like, because there's no limits how many aliens can enter like the combat zone, as it's called. So I think at one point, how many were like 9 aliens were in there at one point?
Yeah, something like that. And some of them do double strikes. So, like, the strikes are the cards you draw to take wounds, which can be a random number of wounds. So, I think about 3 or 4 turns in, we discovered the perfect organism, which is, we were playing based on the first Alien film, which is the alien of Alien fame. And if it gets into the combat zone, you can't kill it. It just sits there and absolutely brutalizes you with double strikes every turn. And so from there, we then built up more and more aliens, and we were drawing, I think at one point we were drawing like 12 strikes every turn. And given that the players have about 10 health, and some of these strikes can do up to 5 damage.
oh my god.
Yeah, we were doomed at one, right at the end, it was me left.
It's no use, Cam. Can you reach the straight deck?
I can't get in the combat zone. Because it's full of... I was asking, legitimately, how could you fit that many aliens in one space? Like, they must have been packed to the brim in there. They can't have been enjoying it. Like, and it was just me left in there, essentially my character. So I'm sat there while all these aliens are just, like, rolling on top of one another. And I had, like, 3 health left. And I drew the strikes. I was like, come on. And of course, there is no way I would have survived
It just
that.
reminds me, have you seen that picture? It's like a screenshot from Zoo Tycoon or something, and there's like 80 different humpback whales in one pool. It's just a little notification that says humpback whale number 27 is not happy.
Yeah, picture that, but aliens.
But full of xenomorphs.
Yeah, xenomorphs and eggs. The eggs as well, and the face huggers, and the little ones that pop out of like your chest and skitter off when they're like little babies.
The chest bursters.
You know, but they're not called chest bursters anymore once they're out of the body. They're called like skitterers, I think.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favourite things about that game, is because obviously in Alien there's really only the aliens there's aliens, there's chest bursters, there's face huggers and eggs, but they obviously needed lots of different types of alien enemy, so they give them different names. So there's like skittering xenomorph, and there's like meddlesome xenomorph,
that
which
was
just
my
made him sound
favourite.
kind of like this scampish kind of Oh, you're meddlesome xenomorphs.
Yeah, the art for one of them, I said, was very reminiscent of a lot of comic book art for certain female characters when their chest and behind are somehow in the same image. You know, when they're like twisted torsos, like yeah, you know what I'm talking about. One of them looked like that. I was like, what's it trying to do? Allure us? It's trying to like put us off with its sexy posing.
It was pretty, because then we got a whole line of them, so they looked like backup dancers.
But the mod for that game is really cool. The one we played, like, it's got like, it had little eggs on the table and little face hugger models and stuff. It was really cool.
Amazing.
As an Alien fan, I was enjoying it. And of course, I made one of the models really big. And just, rolled it around on the board. What else did we play, Matt Jarvis?
We played Harry Potter, Hogwarts Battle. Another co-op deck builder. We were like on a bit of a train with co-op deck builders, but that had no xenomorphs.
Yeah, we've been bitten by Alien, quite literally. And we wanted something a bit more gentle and easier. So we went to Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle, which the art is based on the movies, and oh my lord, imagine those cards, but like translated via like pictures. So
I remember seeing the art in. I think we had it in the office. Was that game?
Yeah, we had
yeah,
like
that
the
was-
spin-off version, but yeah, it's much the same.
Right.
Yeah,
it
someone
was-
had taken pictures
it was
of
pretty terrible.
those cards. So it was like a grainy picture of like Ron on the floor, like sweating at one point. But no, it was fun.
Yeah, that game's like it's pretty good. Like it's
Yeah.
absolutely solid as a deck builder. It does the deck building thing, and like it has its chapters where it adds slightly more cards, even though it kind of like weirdly breaks the timeline because you've got like 18-year-old Draco Malfoy beating up on like 9-year-old Harry Potter
Oh,
in the early
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, they only bothered to print out one card for Draco, so it's just 16-year-old Draco beating up 11-year-old, Ron Weasley and his pals. I was playing as Neville Longbottom.
Oh yeah, of course you were.
Yeah, that classic character who we all know and love. And my favourite card was Trevor. Trevor the Toad. MVP. the best character.
Is that his pet? Or something?
That's his alter ego.
Yeah, that's what he turns into, like an animorph.
Yes! Oh my goodness.
No, they all have pets.
Yeah, they do. Although I think Harry has Hedwig. One of them has like the Nimbus 2000 or something like that. I think it's
It's a
Ron.
pet.
Ron doesn't
no,
have
Ron-
Scabbers.
No! Ron,
But he doesn't
does.
start with Scabbers, does he?
I don't
he
know. I wasn't
started-
playing Ron.
Oh,
I think he's
I
got
hate this
Pigwidgeon.
conversation. Let's crack on.
yeah. Anyway,
He does start with Scabbers, but then Scabbers turns into your man.
No, Lolies. Scabbers is a rat. he starts with Pigwidgeon, the owl.
yeah, it's Pigwidgeon.
Because Scabbers, spoiler alert for a really old film, is actually like a 40-year-old man pretending to be a rat.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, as Loli's put it, he turns into your man.
Oh, you
It's
said
like-
you man.
Cracks me up when you call anything your man. I don't know why.
Oh,
but it's
gosh.
one of my
I know
favourite things.
it's the perfect word to use when you don't know somebody's name, and I never know anyone's name, so I use it a lot.
I thought you said he turned into a rat, and I was like, no. No, he is a rat.
Let's move
Anyway.
on.
Wills, what have you been playing?
Oh,
Well-
Wheels!
Yeah, mate.
Guys. Sat there patiently
I hate Harry Potter.
while the adults talk.
No, Harry Potter's the best.
Yeah,
No,
go on.
it
Bill.
isn't.
Say
You don't even know
make
the name
fight
of your
right.
man.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't know the name of your man, are you a true Harry Potter fan?
Peter Pettigrew.
Yes, that one.
Right. I've
My-
been playing, or at least I've been sort of playing, Infinity CodeOne, which I believe we just put an article up about, or at least we will have done by the time this goes live, where I'm having to get all of the things off of the box so that I can show you the box. But this is a sort of stripped down, streamlined version of one of my favourite miniatures games, which appears on our list of good miniatures games that aren't Warhammer, which is Infinity by Corvus Belli. It is a sort of sci-fi, like it's got like a very manga aesthetic, like it reminds me of like Ghost in the Shell and that kind of vibe to it. It's like far distant future, everything's very like cyberpunk and high tech, and it is cool as hell. The miniatures that come in this box are incredible. I've got this little flamer dude here who I think looks absolutely amazing. And he's got a big barrel of flame juice on his back there. Which looks pretty good.
Does he say
Obviously-
flame on, Wills?
Flame on! You don't have the benefit of that if you're listening, but that
was
just means
just
you'll have
gonna
to
say-
come over to the Dicebreaker YouTube channel and hit subscribe. So, yeah, it's to be
You
fair,
have to
there's
subscribe, otherwise you can't see this.
yeah,
Video.
it's logged. Sorry, this miniature requires a Facebook Gold account
This
to view.
high quality content is not.
You need to be verified.
Yeah, the rule set is still quite similar to the base rules, but I think they've just sort of taken out a few of the more like confusing aspects, and they've just said just ignore them basically. Like this is like the core of the rule set. Like if you're playing Infinity, this is like the basics. And then if you ever feel like, maybe it's too simplified at some point, and to be fair, I think it will take a little while before you get to that point, because like I said, it's still got most of the sort of like grit that you get in the game, most of the sort of like core gameplay of it. But once you get to that point where you're like, I want to go super in depth now, that's when you start getting the full fat rule set, which I think they're putting out a 4th edition of soon as well. So there's a new full-on rule set, and then there's CodeOne, which is a bit more friendly to new players. But there is one thing about CodeOne, it only has 4 factions in it at the moment. So you can only play as Combined Army, Yucheng, the O12, who I think are like the UN or something, and Pan-Oceania, who are Australian Templars, which is, great. But yeah, there you go. It's really, really cool. I really, really like the scenery that they've put in the box, because I've grabbed a starter set before, and to be fair, I could probably show you. Yeah, actually. So this is the one of the old starter packs, and it comes with like this like super thin cardboard scenery that you just pop out, like it's literally like a sheet of paper almost, which is very functional and it works, but it's super flimsy, and when you're playing with metal miniatures as well, like they can bend and you really have to support them to make them work properly. Whereas the new set, oh my god, comes with this like thick cardstock stuff that's like, it's almost like, you guys have played Colt Express, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, think of the train from that.
Yeah.
Like imagine buildings made out of that sort of thickness card material, and it's actually really, really nice stuff. Like I would happily put this on a proper professional table. It's obviously not quite as detailed as the like super realistic plastic and laser printed stuff, but like it's really, really good. So I think this is definitely like a really good like start point for new players to get in. I'm going to write like a little, maybe like a preview or like a why you should play CodeOne kind of thing coming up on the website at some point. But yeah, pretty cool.
Cold Express is a great game also.
Cold Express is great.
Yes. One might say it's one of the 10 best train games. But who could say?
I think it's probably the best train game.
Oh,
look at him! Look at him! He's so upset.
Well, actually, it's not technically a train game because it misses the core concepts of route building and pick up and do. Yeah,
it's the train
it's
segment, everyone.
I'm sorry.
It's back.
Colt
My
Express
popular
is
demand.
fantastic. Agreed. And Infinity looks really good. I've not played loads of it myself, but I really like the way it looks, and I am
guy's got a big
ever
coat
more
on.
tempted. Oh
We
yeah.
will stop doing a show and tell on a podcast.
Yeah. Although he does.
I worked hard on them, ladies.
Too much show, not enough tell.
I said he had a big coat on. That's for the people at home.
Oh yeah, that's really getting the imaginative juices flowing.
Imagine a guy, right?
Yeah.
He's got a big coat on.
That's
People
all you
just
need to know.
imagining
That's
like a
all you need to
massive
know.
puffer jacket just out in space. Cool, yeah, Infinity seems rad. And CodeOne seems neat.
Sorry, go on.
Oh no, that was it.
I was just going to say something that neither of us have mentioned. I really can't talk today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Neither Wheels, Meehan, or myself have mentioned it, but we played Burgle Bros as well.
Yeah, of
we've
course.
last spoken. I was just thinking about it when Meehan was talking about the co-op games and how how you guys got absolutely destroyed, and I was like, I recently got destroyed in a co-op game. And I was trying to think what it was.
Have you or your friends been destroyed in a co-op game recently? Call
Well,
today.
we played it on our live stream last Thursday with Ellen from Orchestra, and I'd never played it before, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. Like, I actually, now that I've just remembered that it exists, I really want to play it.
Burger Bros is fantastic.
It's
got
great.
I've got a physical copy of it, and I'm missing about 3 cards, and it breaks my heart because I think it does actually make it unplayable, but they just got lost in my boot somewhere, and I have no idea where they are.
Oh, that's hard.
Just
Yeah, I
ignore
think you
'em.
use all of them.
When
Yeah.
you said in your boot, I thought you meant in your boot that you wear on your foot, and I was like, why were you keeping that?
Where do you not keep your board games in your shoe collection? I've just combined them into one more efficient collection.
Are you telling me, Lolies, that Wheels has some sort of wormhole in his boot where
Yeah.
he'll drop the tiles down there and never see them again?
I've got a TARDIS shoe.
Have you ever seen Wheels' feet? I haven't. I should.
When I played when I played Arkham Horror, I was playing. It was an ex-girlfriend I was playing it with the first time I played it through, but we didn't have like a bag to put the tokens in, so we got one of her boots and called it the Chaos Boot that we had to delve into to draw a token.
This is the thing in Wheels' World. I told you.
Yeah, Wheels'
Wheels'
World.
World.
Come on in.
That's the new
Wheels'
segment.
World.
La 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 la, Wheels World. No 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 no. Welcome to Wheels World.
Anyway, I've been playing Oriflamme.
Sorry?
Well, I've been playing Oriflamme to try and move
Oh.
this along because we're. Who would have thought we're running over time for this little bit that was meant to be a
What?
short? Hey, what have you been up to? It started
You
with
wanna-
Lolies going, I haven't played anything, and now it's been like 40 minutes.
You want to move on from Wheels' World? Leave it. Sorry, yes. Sorry.
We're all living in Wheels' world.
Na 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 na.
Wheels as well, and you're just living in it.
Yeah, I played Oriflamme, which I reviewed for the website, which I really, really, really like. It's kind of, I describe it as a bit Love Letter and a bit Game of Thrones, because it's. I played it with. Did I play it with all three of you in the office before we?
We have played it.
Yeah, we played it at lunch, didn't
Lolies,
we?
you were there.
I'm certain that Lolies was there.
I don't think so.
This is going to be another one of those I've never played X, and Will's going, yes, you have, I taught you, but just deeming it not important enough to remember.
Yeah.
Never played this game.
Anyway, Oriflamme, yeah. So you start with a hand of 10 cards, but you take out 3 randomly. Everyone has the same 10 cards, but you remove 3 at random. Sound familiar? It's almost like we played it together.
I do remember this game. I did really bad.
Yeah,
That's why.
It's not as bad
That's
as
why
I
that
did.
memory.
it's
is-
kind of brutal, like Love Letter. So it's every turn, everyone plays a card to the middle in a row. So you play it to either the left or the right of the row, and in later rounds you can cover over your own cards, and then you go along the row in the order of a spear. The resolution direction marker, as they call it, which is a really clumsy way of calling it an arrow.
Colonel, activate your resolution direction marker.
But you then go along the cards, and any cards that, so you play them face down, and you decide whether you want to reveal them. And if you don't reveal them, you put an influence on them. So influence is the points that you're after. And if you do reveal it, you then get to do its ability. And the abilities are generally, they either get more influence or basically just be really nasty to everyone around you.
My
So
kind
you
of
can,
game.
yeah. So you can assassinate people with like an archer. So you assassinate the first or last card in the row. You can assassinate the character next to you. You can steal from the person next to you. So it becomes this really kind of take that-ish kind of I'm stealing from you or killing your cards before you get a chance to use them, or, you know, stopping you getting points. But there's a really fun kind of, do I hold off to try and get as many points as possible, but the more points that stack up on a card, the more risk it's at, because people will start to target it and think that, you know, they're going to try and stop you getting kind of a bounty of points. But then there's a card that's an ambush, so if you attack it, it gives the person even more points. So it kind of turns into this bluffing game. And then, like I say, later on you can cover over cards in the middle of the row, so you can kind of protect them, or even kind of insert a card into the middle of something to get more points. It's really good. It's also really cheap. It's like just over 10 quid. I think it's the first game from, I think they're part of a book publisher, the French book publisher Hachette. They're called like Studio H, but this is the first game they put out, and it's a blinder. It's really
That's
good.
great.
Yeah, and it did really well at the Astor, did it not?
Yeah, it won the Asdor, the French kind of Game of the Year award, when it came out in French. So yeah, I think the only downside, particularly at the moment, is that you have to. It's best with basically as many people as you can play it with. I think it's 3 to 5 players, but it definitely plays better with 5, more towards that end of the scale.
It was definitely one of those games where like halfway through us playing our first game, I figured out how to play the game. And I was like, it's too late now. I've completely screwed this.
But I think the thing with it is, like, Love Letter I like, but Love Letter is very much, you draw the card, you have 2 choices, and you are nearly always basically going to go with the same thing. You know, there are certain combinations where you always play a certain card or whatever. Like, generally it's kind of quite luck driven, whereas this actually feels strategic enough where it's like, oh, I'm going to go at the end because I want to see what other people reveal, but obviously there's a risk in that, or I can go up front and hope that I beat them to it, or I can play it. You know, it just has that little bit extra, but it's not that much more complicated. As I kind of wrote in the review, the only thing I don't like about it is the fact that the box opens like a box of matches, so the tray slides out, but it slides out at the bottom. So where the cover art is, if you pick it up with the cover art towards you and orientate it correctly, the tray just drops straight out of the bottom, which I've discovered on many an occasion now.
This is a weird reference.
It's like an ambush, Matt Jarvis. You're being ambushed by the box.
Very meta.
It's a weird reference, but the Total War Warhammer 1 Collector's Edition did the same thing, but it was a book about this big, and it had like a stone horn in it. So literally, like, you'd pick it up and it'd just go, whoa, okay!
Yeah. But I really, really like it. And I think if people like Love Letter, there's that element, but it's a little bit more strategic. It's very lightly themed. That's where the Game of Thrones bit comes into it. You're each family's competing for the throne, and you're basically just stabbing each other and whatnot. But it's really something. I think it could be. I think if enough people kind of, because it doesn't have the most attractive name, Oriflamme. You know, it seems a bit medieval.
Sounds like a noise. Oriflamme.
I think it's a standard banner. But it's not a fun name. It doesn't really scream like "pick me up and have fun with me." But I think it is really, really good. And I think if enough people try it, it should get as good as Love Letter or as big as.
Not like the name Matt Jarvis does.
I didn't start this fight. I didn't get to pick my name.
Matt. Yeah, Matt. I really wish more games screamed at you, "Pick me up and have fun with me." You own just like continuously.
Well,
I think I'd definitely get a copy. I think it's on my list to get.
All right, let's move on to news, shall we? Because there's actually quite a bit of news this week. Up front, there's the big announcement of that, particularly for us here in the UK, UK Games Expo is cancelled this year.
Yeah, that's hit me very hard this week, not gonna lie.
Yeah, so they previously announced it's normally held kind of at the beginning of June, so it was like the very end of May. It's that half-term holiday. They had announced, I think, in March, or maybe a little bit earlier than that it was delayed to August. And now they've just said, nope, it's just not happening this year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. They did, in their announcement, there's no mention of it in the text or in any documents that they put out, but the image they put out with the announcement that the physical event was cancelled, it just says Virtual Expo TBC, but there's absolutely no information on that at the moment, so there's no word as to what that is or where it might happen. But that's very similar to Origins over in the US, which has been delayed to October for the time being, and they are running a virtual convention, which is, again, they haven't said what that is. Like, Origins were like, oh, you can demo games and things like this. It's like, how does that work over the internet? But I suppose we'll find out. It's an interesting one, and out the back of that, Essen Spiel, which is the big German event, the world's biggest kind of board game convention, which tends to have kind of the lion's share of big releases, particularly for board games. They've come out and said that's still on for the time being. It's not postponed. It's not delayed. It's still happening towards the end of October. But obviously that's a little further bit out, so who knows where we might be by the time October rolls around. So yeah, and Gen Con actually, excuse me, which takes place in July, August time. That is also still on. That's over in the US. So kind of probably the two biggest events of the US and Europe are still on for now. I think Gen Con is more of the bigger question mark, given that the summer is now looking more and more, or less and less likely, I suppose. But yeah, it's a hard time. But obviously, you feel for folks working at events and for smaller creators and publishers at the moment who depend on those cons to kind of make their money and to get the word out about their games, because it's harder and harder to actually get people to discover your game, even if your game is amazing. Sometimes it just slips under the radar, and I think cons are one of those places.
I think 90% of board games judge their release times around when events are hitting. So it's like, it is this strange number of like when are things actually going to come out now? Yeah.
So, and yeah, particularly in such a physical world, you would get limited releases at Gen Con of 500 copies or 1,000 copies before it hit the shops. But what does that now look like?
Yeah.
So I think only time will tell. But the longer this goes on, the kind of more well, not even interesting. It's obviously a sad situation. It's hard for a lot of folks out there. So obviously, heart goes out to people affected by it, and hope people are doing as well as they can be.
Yeah, good luck. I don't think Gen Con's going to happen.
I would be very surprised.
I'm surprised that they're still saying it's going on. I think even Essen, I think for an event of that size, considering, again, having not been, from what I've heard, it's just packed in there. I would be surprised, even in October, if it's going to happen. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's a complicated situation between the people that run the event and the people who own the venue and ticket holders and exhibitors, and there's a lot of people who are obviously woven into every event that happens. So I think some of it is timing, some of it is just some of it might be optimistic thinking, but I think nobody's out. I don't think anybody is out, being risky or trying to put anyone in danger or anything like that. I think they're just trying to do what's best by as many people as possible. But
no, I would just say I think it's probably connected to the venue, but the earlier that they announce these things, the more time they'll have to potentially put something else in place. For example, these virtual conventions and things. But again, we don't know all the story, so
yeah,
we're just sad that all these events are cancelled, and for the people who rely on that for their business, and also we can't go there and look at amazing games ourselves. So
yes, in slightly more upbeat news, we actually had an email about this. I'll read this email very quickly from Charlie Etheridge Nunn, who says, "Hi Dicebreakers, Johnny was talking about Deadlands in a recent episode, which was a system I enjoyed many years ago. Which version do you use, and do you have any thoughts on the Kickstarter for the new edition?" And I bring this up because A, there is a new version of Deadlands on Kickstarter, which I was going to mention anyway, and B, we have some Deadlands players in the team. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
On what? Sorry, on Deadlands.
That'd be the one.
Yeah! What's going on?
You're just pumped to be here.
I love Deadlands.
Charlie was asking which version do you use, and do you have any thoughts on the Kickstarter for the new edition?
I don't know which version we use. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we used the Deadlands Reloaded, which was released in early 2000s. So it's been a good long while since they released an update. So Deadlands, it's a little confusing because they call it an edition, but technically it's based on a system called Savage Worlds, which got a new edition last year. So Deadlands is a setting rather than a full-on system, but it's the new edition is called Weird West. Sorry, which confused me as well because the setting is so often referred to as the Weird West that I didn't realise that was the name of the new edition. We Reloaded well enough, don't we, Lolies?
Yeah, I love it. We've been playing. We were supposed to have a one-off session in the office before Christmas sometime. Johnny GM'd, and it was just all girls. So there's a bunch of, I think, 5 or 6 girls in the group, and then Johnny GMing, which was really nice. And it was supposed to be a one-off thing, just like we were doing RPGs in the office, and we all enjoyed it so much that we were like, let's do this again. And we've met up, or physically and virtually since this has been ongoing. A good few times, maybe 5 or 6 times since then, and we're having an absolute blast. I think Deadlands is probably one of my favourite RPGs, RPGs that I've played since I've started playing RPGs. I think it's definitely one of my top 2, I'd say.
Yeah, Savage Worlds is very easy to get your head around. It's a fairly straightforward system of where you all have base skills, and even characters will even have in the new edition, for example, characters now have a base set of skills that everyone has, and then you can kind of choose your specifics from there. which I think is a fantastic idea. But then the skills themselves aren't number modifiers; they're just dice. So like you would roll, you always roll a d4, but then you could roll like a d6 along with that, or a d8. So it's not like specific number modifiers, it's just the type of dice you roll, which I think is awesome because it keeps things like really, like, simplified, and it puts the emphasis on the world itself, which is really interesting because it's like supernatural, horror, Wild West.
That's awesome.
Yeah, rather than like, oh, look at my modifiers, hang on, I need to add 36 to this roll or whatever. Johnny keeps saying how excited he is about the Deadlands, Weird West. Sorry, Lily.
He's like read his way through that one already, like the new book, right? For that. But I think we'll be playing that on soon.
We will, yeah. We'll tease it and not give a specific date. But we will be for those listeners who have been watching Dungeon Breaker, our D&D series, which is just coming to the end of its actually this weekend. In fact, will be the last episode of the first season of Dungeon Breaker, and then we'll be taking a very short break, which will include some new Deadlands before we go back to D&D. So I'm excited. I've never played Deadlands, so
yeah, me neither.
So I'm excited to just dig in and kind of see how it goes, because it has all the elements that sound really good, and like your group sounds like it always has a blast of it. So
yeah, if you like rip roaring yeehaw action, then keep your eyes out for our Deadlands.
And
I do love rip roaring yeehaw action.
Very excited to bring out my benoit voice.
No. I
listen
feel like
here.
I go to Foghorn Leghorn as my default.
No,
see here.
Oh, viewers and listeners, you are in for a treat when it comes to accents.
I think Meehan and I are both bringing our characters from our existing Deadlands game into this game, and we both love our characters a lot. So, and they're well established. So it'll be interesting to see how they do with a new group, because obviously everyone in our group kind of knows us at this point.
I'm excited. From what I've heard about your characters, they both sound very good, so I'm chuffed to get the chance to just play opposite them, and also a little intimidated by trying to come up with anything close to that. Alright, so shifting on, speaking of D&D actually, just a very quick one, especially as you mentioned the Stranger Things set, Lolies. Last year was apparently the biggest year for D&D EVs, so in its 46-year history.
Hearing you say that word is like Dad saying like one of those cool kid words, like.
Oh wow! Thanks so much. What I'm trying to say.
That's
How do you do, fellow adventurers?
So Wizards of the Coast. It was very much like a back patty kind of look how great we are. So they were a little bit. I'm actually following up with them to find out some more details, because they say like D&D has 40 million fans, and it's like, what does that mean? Is that people that actually play the game, or is that just people that have heard of D&D and go, yeah, I like it? Like they've goblins, yep, like take that one off. But the interesting stat out of this is the sales of. So let me find the specific phrasing, so we're 100% accurate. Sales of introductory boxed products. So basically, like the 5e starter set, and I think that also includes things like the Stranger Things set as well, because you can pick it up and get going with it. They quadrupled in sales year on year, which is a big old jump. They went up 300%. So, and they haven't given specific numbers of how many they sold. So they could have gone from 1 to 4, but presumably D&D is selling at least a sizable number of copies to begin with, being the biggest RPG going. So yeah, it's just kind of an interesting thing of, there's a lot of talk about things like Critical Role and, obviously like our own Dungeon Breaker thing, or Oxventure, things like that, and how more and more people are getting into D&D, but this is just kind of backing up that, I guess, anecdotal feel of a lot of people want to play D&D. And obviously that's before all of this happened as well, where I think that's kind of spurring even more people to pick up.
I can't believe Dungeon Breaker managed to increase the sales.
Yeah,
I know.
Much.
We've only been going like
It's
6
great.
months.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I can see why it's happening, because if when we've looked at those numbers for how many people are playing what RPGs online, D&D 5e is just like miles ahead of every other system. Like, percentage-wise, it's a huge gap. And I mostly think it's to do with brand recognition, because like D&D is just the name of it. Number one, like when you're talking about role-playing games, you often just use the term D&D because it's a term that like most people who maybe haven't been in the sphere of tabletop RPGs have at least heard of, like D&D. So they've got the brand recognition, they've got Stranger Things obviously referencing it and making the nostalgia goggles for it. And also, I mean, Wizards of the Coast have they're clever. Like, they know how to market things, they make it easily available, like they use conventions to get the word out there, and obviously shows like Critical Role. And I would love the idea as much as, again, D&D 5e is great, but I'd love the idea of having more people migrate from D&D 5, 5e. Did I say 5a? No.
Don't know. Just all
D&D 5e to like other role-playing games and systems, because there's just so many out there, and I think people overlook them because. And again, like with you, Lolies, talking about the Stranger Things starter pack, like pre-written campaigns, pre-trained characters. I've met so many people who are like, I find this really hard to get into with like less experience, and I'm just sat there going, please look at this cool stuff. And I'm like pointing over there, going, look at this cool stuff. Just piles and piles of other RPG books. So yeah, good for them, I guess.
Yeah, I saw. So D&D's been in the chatter recently for various reasons, but someone much cleverer than me, I apologise because I can't remember who they were, on Twitter said that D&D is kind of like the McDonald's of role-playing games, in that I don't think anyone's pretending that it's, really incredible, but it is just one of those things that people go to because they kind of know what it is. It's a relatively known quantity, it's the fantasy you expect. But yeah, sometimes it feels like, as big as D&D now feels, I don't know whether that is also translating to people going beyond that, like exploring things like, Deadlands or the Root RPG or what have you, just these smaller indie RPGs that a lot of the time are, like you say, Meehan, easier to pick up.
Cheaper as well.
Yeah, and more interesting worlds and stuff like that, not just relatively generic fantasy still. So I think there's still that barrier there, and I think it will always be there just because it's so big. But it is definitely interesting to see. Okay, speaking of big popular properties, here's Two Together. Alex Meehan, you wrote this story on Risk, Warhammer 40,000.
Matt Jarvis, why'd you torture me?
The people need to know.
Well, now, disclaimer. When I read the press release for this, it was almost like reading an entirely different language, because I know very little about Warhammer. So when I was reading like all the names of the different characters and the factions and stuff, I was like I was holding my glasses off and going, like, what? Like,
you mean
sorry,
like
what?
Marneus Calgar of the Ultramarines and Autark of the Eldari Craftworlds?
Yeah, of course. But of course, those great old guys. Yeah.
Yeah, who are those guys? Am I right, lads?
Yeah, am I right, lads? Yeah, so Risk, that classic family board game. That's incredibly old now, in board game terms, is getting finally, the people have asked and asked for it, and it's finally happening. It's getting a Warhammer 40,000 edition, which I'm not going to remember any of the names. I'm sorry, Matt Jarvis, but it's taking place on a planet.
Vigilus.
Yeah, that's the one.
Sorry, I've got you back here.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I believe there are a selection of factions you can choose from.
Ultramarines, Orcs, Chaos Space Marines, Eldari Craftworlds, and Gene Stealer Cults.
There you go.
Oh, Gene Stealer cults. Oh, god damn it! Can't even put the proper Gene Stealers in.
Oh, here comes the actual Warhammer 40,000.
Honestly.
Wheels, help me out
Right.
here.
Look, Tyranids do not get enough love.
Yeah, and it's Risk, but with Warhammer stuff. I think there's some added complexities with some of the abilities that different factions have and their leaders. But for the most part, it just sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, in some ways, this is how has this not happened before now. But I suppose you could have said the same thing about Monopoly Warhammer 40,000 that came out a couple of years ago. Because both of those have been around forever and yet somehow never collided.
They went Monopoly first.
Yeah.
Risk second.
Very strange.
In a world of eternal war, there is only property management.
Can you? I'm imagining, right, some poor guy setting up his little house on one of those planets, being like, oh, I can't wait to charge rent on this. I'm going to make a business finally. And then, like, a horde of space marines or something just comes trundling through and just
like
destroys it.
Thingy Mole Man from The Simpsons just
On someone's spaceship, just lands on it, just... Sorry, I thought this was free parking.
But I haven't, to be honest, I haven't double checked this, but I saw some folks saying that only 2 of the faction leaders are named as well. So there's 5 factions, but only 2 of the leaders have names, which is a little bit of a weird, like,
Bit lazy.
you're important, and then everyone else is just leader Orc, leader Marine. I don't know.
Yeah, Orcs and Chaos and Eldar all have named characters.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, the lore of Warhammer 40,000 is kind of the thing, right? It's
Yeah.
being made into
Black
books, it's being
Library.
made into films, yeah.
That's very
So,
odd.
Even
Anyway.
I know that, and I'm a total scrub when it comes to Warhammer related things.
Just in general, really, man.
Yeah. Yep, TLC would identify me as a scrub. Yes, there you go. There's the hot news on Risk.
wonderful. In a little bit more interesting news, this one's also was written up by you, Quest, which is a RPG. Speaking of RPGs that probably deserve to get some love over D&D, Quest is getting its first official setting.
It is indeed. Yeah, it's called The Reach. I spoke to the lovely TC Sotek, who is the creator for Quest. Basically being like, hey, give me all the hot details. And they were like, yeah, so it's based off an idea of like a sandbox RPG, which is really interesting. I've not really heard of that before. Where characters are basically encouraged to kind of go off and follow their own missions, dependent on kind of what factions they want to align themselves with. So there are 12 different factions, 3 for the city in which the setting is kind of based around, and 3 representing the quote enemies, which I think are linked to some sort of terrible cataclysmic event that is happening to the rest of the world except for this one city, because it's being protected by an artifact of some sort. And yeah, like, player characters find themselves in this location. They can choose what missions they want to do, but they have to choose them before they do the session, because essentially if they choose to do one mission and they refuse another one, that mission that they refuse basically counts against that faction. And eventually, if a faction goes far enough down what's called a doomsday clock, then a kind of triggering climactic event happens to do with that faction, and then essentially the campaign ends with that. So it's very like open worldy. There's plenty of gaps there for like players to fill in with their own ideas, and the guide or the GM to fill in. And it will be available for free to just download off the website. So
That sounds cool.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very neat. I think I obviously speak on behalf of the team, but I think we're all pretty big fans of Quest. Johnny's review is fantastic. If you've not heard of Quest, it's kind of like it's a fantasy RPG, although Meehan was saying, it hasn't really had a setting till now. It's kind of quite loose, but you just roll one 20-sided die. You have a class and you can pick abilities in that class, but it's all very streamlined. It's very friendly. The book is really gorgeous. I can't remember the artist's name, unfortunately, but like the look of it and the feel of it is just, it's very welcoming. It's very easy to pick up, but you can have a lot of fun with it. It doesn't feel kind of shallow or kind of less of an RPG. I think it really nails that, hey, pick me up, get going with me. It's more so than it sounds like the Stranger Things set, for instance, which is, I think, again, one of those things where more people will have heard of Stranger Things D&D than they will have heard of Quest, but I think in a lot of ways Quest is better. And if you would like to see Quest in action... sorry, Lolies.
I was going to do the segue. I was going to go, it's pretty loosey-goosey. And if you like Beast and you like Quest, then you should check out our Let's Play that we did. The second episode of which is coming out this weekend. So you can catch up on the first episode and then catch the second episode this Sunday.
What if I don't like geese, Lolies? What if I like another animal? Say, for instance,
Otter?
pulling one out of the air, otters.
Cows? Otter, cows, take
an
a
owl.
pick.
A particularly
An-
aggressive
yeah.
owl.
I forgot about the owl.
I forgot
Well, that
about
was
the-
yes, yeah. It was a game we originally
Well-
ran for Treehouse, which is a kind of charity organisation or working on behalf of charity. The Treehouse is the charity, and it was Lost Odyssey who was running the stream, which ran a little while back, and it was, what's the word? Chaotic is definitely
chaotic.
a
I
word.
was gonna say we should stop using the word chaotic because I think that's just Dicebreaker.
That's part of the
I
course.
think-
We need to find
Yeah.
subgenres within chaotic.
You know how they say chaos is a ladder? Like, imagine that somebody like got on the ladder and then it immediately broke off the wall and they fell directly down the pit all in one big swoop.
Let's
That's
say
it. We need a word for that.
Dicebreaker.
the first few minutes of that video is just us laughing.
I was
Much
genuinely crying within
continuously.
seconds.
Like my insides felt like they were going to explode. Like I was laughing so much.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't sell you on it, plus the idea of Johnny. If you ever wondered if Johnny could sound like Phil Mitchell,
Well,
Find
pretending
out.
to be an owl.
Whilst playing a very small and angry owl.
It's a treat. Cool. The last thing I'll mention here in terms of Kickstarters going on at the moment is Sea of Legends, which actually lands on Kickstarter next week on May the 5th. But we have a preview up on the site, courtesy of Eric Watson, who played a bit of it, and it sounds really neat. It sounds kind of a bit like Merchants and Marauders, so it's kind of an open world or sandboxy pirate game. But then it's got a kind of storytelling aspect to it, and it has a companion app. You have like a love interest and a rival, and you can choose to pursue
Wow!
one or the either or both, and
I'm
it
invested.
sounds really neat.
Do you get to like make up the story for your love interest or not?
Meehan, they could not stop you.
If you wish to write fan fiction about your Sea of Legends love interest,
Yeah.
I'm sure that will be permitted.
That would be
asked that
me. Sorry.
I was just gonna say you asked that question the way you asked about the priest in Dungeon Breaker.
Yeah. Look,
Does he look like the priest in blah 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 or not?
Fleabag.
Hot priest, yeah.
Look, I have a certain interest, and I just want to know if I'm being catered to or not. And this game, obviously the pirate aspects of it sound great, and the gameplay aspects, but my ears immediately perked up at the idea that you can have a love interest. I just want to be a cool pirate queen.
I think you can do that, yeah.
Wrangles herself a partner in crime.
As far as I know, you can be a pirate in this game. You can be a pirate, you can sail around, you can do piratey things. And then you can also have a love interest, have a rival, that kind of thing. So yeah, it sounds neat.
You know,
Have
I'm
the
a real life
blues.
pirate.
Sorry?
I'm a real life pirate.
What?
Is it just you downloading dodgy copies of Game of Thrones, but wearing a hat and swigging rum? And being
Yeah.
like, yar, stick it to the man.
No, I'm licensed sailor and I used to fence and I have an Irish accent which is close to a pirate accent.
Have you committed any crimes on the high seas, though?
Yes.
Yeah?
As far as you know, yes.
Yeah.
Usually it's the other way around. No, as far as you know, I haven't committed any crimes. But you're like, yeah, I mean, look, as far as you know, I've committed loads of crimes.
I'm imagining Lolies in a dinghy, like, throwing a can of something into the water and be like, look there! Yar,
Littering.
International waters littering.
I would never litter in the ocean. It's
No.
terrible.
It is terrible.
You may be a pirate, but you're a conscientious pirate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Save the environment.
Eco-pirate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, pirating isn't all fun. Just, scurvy.
Let's move on.
Yeah, let's take some emails, shall we?
I'm just looking at the time ticking. We're already over an hour.
We're almost on time. For this group, let's say we're on time. We've been here see, the people out there, they just see the, like, neat kind of 1.5 hour version of this, whereas we've been here for 5 hours just having to edit out every tangent that we go on. But I'm gonna read an email here and kick off the email portion of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Hey team, I've got a group of friends who, in this trying time of social distancing, insist upon many long games of Cards Against Humanity online. I'm going slowly mad. Have you got any suggestions for other games that can be played via Discord that are, in a word, better? That's begging for better board games from Kate.
Any other game?
Anything, yeah.
Yeah.
There are plenty of, like, if you like that kind of draw some cards and make jokes about them kind of thing, there are plenty of things like that. I really love Fun Employed. Fun Employed is really good fun. A lot of the better ones, I think, rather than you just sort of like playing a card and reading them out, which can be a little bit sort of a bit generic and a bit flat, I tend towards the ones where you have to like maybe debate, or you have to sort of like put yourself in a role, that kind of thing. Fun Employees asks you to go for a job based on some weird quirks that you draw out of a deck. So it's like, you're going for the job of head mime. You are incredibly loud and cannot stop talking, and you have 4 arms. Crack on, like something like that. There's also things like snake oil.
I love snake oil. I've got
snake oil. You get 2 cards and combine them to make a new like stupid invention that you have to try and
sell.
Get people around the table to buy, which is very good. But yeah, there's lots of things like that. I'm sure you guys will have some very good suggestions as well. But things that don't punch down and don't rely on like 12-year-old levels of humour. But yeah, there you go.
Step up, Lolies. I believe in you. What you got for us?
Nothing.
I think actually we played this on the channel. Wavelength is good fun.
Yeah.
I don't think it's right up there with the very best of them, but I think for a couple rounds it's on Tabletop Sim, but there's also versions that I think people worked out how to just play it. It's essentially you have a topic to debate between 2 ends of a spectrum, so it could be, I don't know, good people and bad people, or whatever have you. Good films and bad films. Sexy Pokemon or non-sexy Pokemon. And then the clue giver picks kind of somewhere on a scale from one to the other. So let's say a mediumly sexy Pokemon. And then, but that's only they see that, and they have to give a very short clue to the rest of the group, or to teams if you're playing it in teams. It can be played co-op, to try and get as close to that on the scale as they can. Which I think it's a really good kind of concept. I don't think it's executed perfectly, but it's very good fun if you get the right group. It's that kind of like, it doesn't do the jokes for you, but there's plenty of room there to just kind of be silly and whatnot.
I would say it's not technically a tabletop game, but it might as well be as well during the current stay-at-home pandemic thing. Jackbox games are fantastic for that kind of thing. Like TKO, I know that you guys love. Quiplash is very good if you want to just like be given a prompt and try and make up a joke. And they actually ask you to be creative rather than just sort of like choosing a card from a hand. So I would recommend those any day of the week as well. Yeah,
I think a lot of them are very similar to tabletop games, and they've basically just added a mobile component. Because I think there's Patently Stupid, which is basically snake oil. There's Drawful, that is somewhere in the realm of telestrations and stuff like that. So
there is also Fibbage, which is basically Balderdash. Fibbage is great though. But yeah, I would absolutely recommend grabbing those guys. Seeing as everyone's playing things on like HTML versions of card games or Tabletop Simulator, you might as well grab something like that. And I think quite a few of them have been on sale recently.
Yeah, and I think Johnny isn't here, but Johnny's been playing the digital version of Love Letter, which kind of, it's not the same kind of party game, hey, make jokes, but it's kind of quick card game that I think works quite well. So there you go.
I would just say, to be honest, I'd say Monica's, but it's impossible to get a copy of that. So, that maybe in a dream.
I think you could. I think there may be a print and play version of Monica's.
Yeah, probably.
I might be wrong.
Yeah.
I think you could probably homebrew a version yourself, and then obviously support the creators when you're next able to. But it's kind of a mashup of charades and Taboo and something else. It's kind of like 3 games in one. But yeah. Cool. Alex Meehan, would you like to read this one from Savannah?
Oh my goodness.
Savannah.
Why, hello there.
Just like molasses dripping out your mouth.
Savannah asks, are there any games you originally hated but came to love, or vice versa?
Thanks, Savannah.
Catan.
Really?
Which way?
Well, I initially hated it, and then I loved it. I played Catan for the first time a few years back when I was working in a board game cafe, and I was playing it with everyone else who'd played it a million times before, and I'd never played before, and I didn't really get the rules explained properly to me, so I didn't really know how we were supposed to win. And then, of course, like, everyone was doing things that you're supposed to do in the game, and I ended up, like, losing terribly, and I was like, I don't even know what I was supposed to be doing throughout that whole game, and I really hated it. And I just, after that, I was like, I don't understand why people like this game. It's horrible, like, I don't like it, blah, blah, blah. And then, a few years later, about a year ago, I think, played it somewhere else, my other job, and with a bunch of people who'd never played it before, and it was great. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I do see why people like this game. But I hated it for a few years, and I was just like, whenever people are like, oh, Catan's a great game, I'd be like, no, it's not. But I'd only ever had that, like, one experience of it, and it was bad. So I think that's the first thing that comes to my mind anyway when I think of a game that I initially hated.
I think I've said this elsewhere, but my favourite game of last year, PAX Premier, the second edition of PAX Premier specifically, the first time I played it, I didn't hate it, but I just didn't get it, because it's by the creator of Root, which I thought was brilliant, Cole Worley, and I played it and I was like, this is just okay, you know, it was just fine, and it didn't really click with me, I suppose you could say. And then I played it again. There was enough there where I was like, okay, I'm going to play it again. That and the fact that I was reviewing it and needed to play it again, and then it kind of warmed to me a little bit. And then by about the 4th or 5th time I was playing it, I was like, actually, this is really, really brilliant. And it wasn't a case of like not getting the rules. I think it was just like the experience. You know, it was that thing of like, it just takes a while to grow on you, and you start to understand why things work together. Going the other way, speaking of Cards Against Humanity, I think most people went for a stage of being like, this game's really fun, and then being like, oh, this game's really awful.
Yeah.
But I definitely had that. I think when it first came out, it was like, oh, this is funny, and then it's like, oh no, it's really not funny. It's no, and you just
Right there.
It's just very samey after a while, isn't it?
Yeah.
That and the fact that the topics are just like, come on.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Not fun. For me, it was probably Cosmic Encounter. The first time I played that game, I was completely like dumped on. I think because we played with some of the more advanced aliens in the pack, so I was kind of like, I'm not 100% sure what I'm supposed to be doing. And like, I've been playing again, like with you, Lolies, I was playing with people who were experienced in the game. And I was like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing. So I kind of sat there, and then I think I actually fell asleep because I was tired. But I gave it another go a few like months or so later, and we played with the beginner set of aliens, and you know, I was more awake, and I really loved it. Like, it's one of those games that I think we talked about it before at some point, but it's really good, and it is one of those games that encourages you to be mean and gang up on people. But it's like all fair game, because then the next minute you could gang up with someone else, or you could easily be ganged up on yourself. It's very much like you're just looking out for you, and you take the opportunities where you can. But I really want to play the 2-player version that they've released. Is that out yet?
I don't think it is out
realise that
yet.
was coming.
I would like to play that. I think it's literally just called Cosmic Encounter Duel, right?
Yeah.
I'm very
right?
intrigued to see how that works, because it
Yeah.
feels like the whole thing of Cosmic Encounter is the teaming up and alliances, but yeah, Cosmic Encounter it's a hell of a game.
What about you, Mr. Whelan? Oh, sorry, Lolies.
I was going to say that I was talking about this with you guys in the office, and I haven't really made it public on anything, but every time I play Fog of Love I get less interested in it. I don't know, like, I'm not sure if it's just not for me, or if I've just not played it with the right people, but like the first time, like when I learned about it, I was like, that's an incredible idea, I'm really excited about it, and then waited a very, very long time to finally get a copy because I kept getting sold out. And then I got it and I played the first game and I was like, okay, yeah, that was good. And then the second time I was like, a third time I was like, oh god, no, I don't like this. I really don't like this.
Yeah.
I think it's just I think it promises a lot and doesn't necessarily deliver, in my opinion. And it's got one of those kind of styles where, like, about halfway through you feel like you're retreading a lot of water, and it didn't gel with me after a while. I can't think of something that I didn't like and then did like, because I'm an incredibly stubborn person. So
Yeah.
Love Letter was kind of like that for me as well, actually, thinking back. Because I think the first version I played was the Kanai Factory one.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if it's... I haven't played it since that time. I don't like those first few times when I played it, and I don't know if it's any different or much different or what it was. But and it was also, we played it 2-player, which I don't think is ideal for Love Letter. But yeah, it was. I really didn't like it, and then it was my best friend and I played it a few times, and he loved it, and I was like, meh. And then we kind of moved to different places, and I've played it since, and I like Love Letter is one of my top favorite games ever. Like, I can play it to death. Especially the premium edition, and I remember, like, maybe a year or so later being to him like, Love Letter is a great game, and he's like, I know, I've been trying to tell you this. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just playing with you.
I think, 2 players, that game is not, because it's like elimination, so it's just like, oh, you won, oh, I won, oh, you won. Oh, yeah.
It does lose something, yeah.
You should try Star-Crossed, Wills. You should really try Star-Crossed.
you told me about this, the RPG, right?
Yeah. It's a RPG made by the same people who made Dread, and it's using the Jenga tower as well.
Yes, no, I really want to play this, actually. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, it's like a romance RPG where
Yeah,
you're with another person.
The Jenga tower's like the romantic tension, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I think that's a lot smarter. I'm really into that.
It sounds so good, and I want to play it. And you can download, or you can buy it and download it from Drive-Thru RPG. You can also get it from the website. I'm trying to remember the name of the publisher. Weird name.
I think it's the Bully Pulpit. So the designer is Alex Roberts.
Yeah.
So I think it may be a different publisher and designer to
Are you
Dread.
sure?
Yeah, Alex Roberts.
Bully Pulpit is the website I'm on now.
Yeah, they're the Fiasco folks, but Alex Roberts definitely designed it, I'm pretty certain.
Maybe I'm just getting confused, because I swear I was on the publisher's website the other day, and Starcross was also on there. So
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
The Impossible Dream, I think the publisher for Dread is called.
Oh, maybe that's. It might be maybe the physical and digital editions are out at different places, or maybe there are different editions or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Every time.
Let's play board games.
Okay. Could you read this one from Kieran, please?
I love Mansions of Madness, specifically because it has the app with the atmospheric-ish storytelling. Are there any other games out there like that? It's from Kiran Chakravorty. and I apologise if I've mispronounced that. There's quite a few app-based games now. I know, Matt, did you say you've been playing the Lord of the Rings one from Fantasy Flight?
Yeah, Journeys in Middle-earth, I think it's called. I always call
Middle-earth.
I often confuse it with like Journeys Through Middle-earth, but I think it's called Journeys in Middle-earth. It's very much Mansions of Madness 2.0. Well, I suppose 2.5 because second edition of Mansions of Madness.
Yeah.
But it's very much built on that gameplay. But I think part of the bits that are better in Journeys in Middle-earth are actually the app parts. So enemies have more kind of keywords associated with them, and the app just kind of supports kind of a more kind of dynamic experience. So you have like branching story paths, and it tracks a campaign, and you can unlock items and level up with experience. It's kind of like a role-playing light experience, whereas Mansions is very much like the self-contained one-off mystery thing. I would actually love, because I much prefer the theme and the setting and the characters of Mansions, but I do really enjoy the way that Journeys in Middle-earth handles some of its kind of bigger, longer storytelling stuff. So I'd really like them to make Mansions of Madness
right?
3rd edition, basically, based on that.
No, you want a crossover. between
Oh, yeah.
and-
Mr. Frodo! Get away from them tentacles!
No, Mr. Frodo, don't go near the giant dark mass.
I won't drop a no Eve, sir. You shall die. It's just Gandalf summoning.
What do your 30 eyes see?
Oh, that's very good. Journeys in Middle-earth. It's very good. I don't know. Does anyone else have any kind of? Well, do you also like companion app games? Because some people don't.
I tend to not. I do really like. I'm quite a big fan of Unlock, and I know I need to play the exit games. But yeah, apart from that, and specifically because Unlock is designed around, looking at the cards and then just putting a button every now and again, just to sort of like, it's almost like a GM, just sort of like telling you if you're right or not. Apart from that, I tend to find that apps put me off from games. Especially Mansions of Madness, I really didn't vibe with it when I played it. I think I just prefer everything to be like physical and on the table and not have to worry about like a digital version next to me.
Yeah, I think I'm a purist like that as well. It just it's a board game, right? So I like board games. I want to play board games.
Oh, jeez. All right, Reddit.
That's not me.
All right, Reddit.
Having said that, I haven't really played many app-based games. I mean, my mind could still be changed, but I think it's just that thought of bringing technology in just like kind of puts me off a bit. Although, having said that, when I was a kid, I remember playing a game where I think it was like one of those like girly games where you like had to, I think it was called Babysitter or something, and you were like, and you played it with a DVD or something.
Now DVDs.
Seen it.
This is an entirely different thing, Lolies. This is another.
It was a board game, and you had to do stuff, and then you had to and then the DVD did stuff with it. I don't really remember. I was like 11 or something, but I really enjoyed that as a kid. So you never know.
But if you had to play it now,
let's do it. I'll do it.
I'm not sure if I can find it, but I've got a DVD SpongeBob SquarePants quiz that I can send you away.
oh Lord.
Can we do that now? I've actually been watching SpongeBob.
I know you have.
Classic. I have been obsessed for many years with VHS board games because I think they're hilarious and they're like a time capsule because they literally just coincided with the boom of VHS as a medium. And like everyone was just trying to make as many videos as possible regardless of the quality or what they could do. And like there's a series called Nightmare, which is like a horror board game series, and it's a simple like move around the board and do stuff. But there's a guy on the screen who just berates you, and he's wearing like this big hood. And
isn't he called the Gatekeeper as well?
Yeah, he's called the Gatekeeper.
You can tell he sits in Games Workshop stores and tells people that they shouldn't be playing.
Yeah. So I love that sort of thing. I think it's so like
Bob Mortimer over it.
Yeah. It's so quaint. As for app-based board games, I quite like them as long as they're done I mean, I like them as long as they're done well. Like, it doesn't bother me. Like, the XCOM board game, I think is really good. It's a co-op board game based on the video game series. And it's the app just helps to manage like the many different kind of elements of the game, and helps you keep track of, because it's like a time, it's like a time-based game. So you've got like a limit in which you need to get things done before that. And it helps keep track of that, but it also provides like a good sense of atmosphere. It's very stressful to play the game, but it's kind of meant to be, because XCOM itself is quite a stressful series. And the new Forgotten Waters game that's coming out, the Crossroads game, which is in the same series of Dead of Winter, and made by one of the same co-creators.
Yeah, I think Isaac Vega's in there, right?
Yeah. It's a pirate game, and the app is just there to help provide like random scenarios that you can counter, and like I'm sure there'll be some sound effects and various other things.
In fact, it is voiced by multiple people from the world of anime, including the voice of Vegeta from Dragon Ball Z.
So Matt Jarvis is interested. You've got Matt Jarvis.
I think there's some folks from like My Hero Academia and stuff like that as well. There's like some relatively big names from anime.
I wish you hadn't told me that. That's made me less interested to play it. I do think that my biggest gripe usually with app-based games is like having to do my turn on the table and then tell the app what I've just done. It's like, it feels very inelegant and clunky. Whereas like I like it when apps are quite sort of intrinsic to how you play. Like that, I really want to play it. I haven't had a chance to yet, but the detective game where all of the cards have QR scanners.
Chronicles of Crime, is this?
Yeah, so you're literally like you lay out your list of suspects and witnesses and stuff, and then based on what you're doing, you just scan the QR code for that thing, and then it's all sort of context sensitive, which I think is really clever, because it's not you sort of like, draw a card, okay, now put this code in an app, and then it will tell you what to do, and then it will tell you to do some more things with the deck, where it feels like you're like jumping back and forth. It's all very much, I'm playing the game with the app. Like they're not two things that you have to tell each other what they're doing, sort of thing.
Yeah, the increasing trend of, because I don't mind companion apps, like I wouldn't want to just play nothing but companion app games, but there was an increasing trend for a while of just games that would say download our companion app, and it was just like a glorified 30-second timer. It's like, I don't need this, your terrible stock music playing in the background. Leave me alone, just put a sand timer in the box.
Oh goodness.
It really
or just like do what Escape Curse of the Temple does, and just give them a CD, and if you want, you can get it on YouTube. Yeah.
Nowadays, it would be like a Spotify playlist, or like
it was available. You could download the MP3, or it was on YouTube, or you could play the CD on something. But then the best thing was that there were alternative versions of the audio track where you could have it where as soon as the timed thing comes in, where you have to get back to the start, it started playing yakety sax. Oh god.
That's a good
Shout out
game.
to Escape, man. What a game.
Yeah, it's great.
Let me find a question for Lolies to read next. I didn't prep this, sorry. I got too carried away with just dumping on timer apps.
Well, as you know, Wills, anything that's vaguely to do with Jungle Run, I love. So that's why Escape.
We can't bring up Jungle Run again.
Escape from the Cursed Temple.
We had our 90s kids TV show thing. Lolies, could you read this question down near the bottom from Isabel on Twitter?
Isabel asks, what are your favourite tactile elements of a board game? What makes them really nice to play with, e.g. materials for pieces, the finish on cards, etc.? We actually spoke about Tsuro earlier, and I really, really love the dragon pieces in Tsuro. They're just like this, like really smooth kind of is it plastic? I don't even know.
It almost feels like carved stone, doesn't it? I know it's not, but it feels like a little trinket almost. It's really nice.
Yeah, and there's just like really simplistic but really beautiful, and I like that's one of my favorite bits. I think what's the name of that company that does Wingspan? Is it Stegmaier or something?
Oh, Stonemaier Games.
Stonemaier. They often do like fancy finish on cards as well, which is like I don't know what you call it, but it feels
like the linen finish.
Yeah, linen finish, exactly. That's quite good as well.
I would say that.
Oh, sorry, carry on, Matt.
I was just going to say metal coins in any game is a great way to win you over.
I love metal coins.
Like, I think Century Spice Road has metal coins, Seafall has them, Charterstone has them.
Yeah.
I just like when you're able to pour them out and it's just like, it's like a really good, rather than like horrible plasticky coins, there's nothing worse than like
Just
weird plasticky
Pop
black.
out cardboard ones are fine for me.
They're fine, but if there's metal coins in there, good metal coins, very satisfying. You can just
But what
chick them
about-
together like ding ding ding.
What about coin scum, Matt Jarvis?
Sorry?
Coin
What did you
scum.
coy me? Coin scum.
What did you
Yeah,
call me?
no, when like coins get like grime on it.
Oh, right.
Ugh,
You
yeah.
get coin scum. Yeah.
I've never had it happen with a board game before. I think it only really happens with like pennies that have been in circulation since 1965, doesn't it?
I think my problem is that I assume all coins are like that, and I
Yeah.
immediately get grossed out.
Right.
I think coppers are rank.
Alex Meehan, who gets paid in like Victorian tuppence.
They're groats, Matt.
Gross,
They're
that's
gross.
it.
Oh, some lovely coin scum on these ones.
Yeah.
I was going to say
Yeah.
my absolute favourite components of board games. I've got two. There's the plastic gems that you get in games like Escape, Curse of the Temple. I love plastic
yeah.
gems. I have no idea why, but I think they're so much fun. But then I also really like, and this is Stonemaier games again, boards that have those little like divots cut out for the tokens to go in, like in Scythe. My favourite thing in Scythe is the fact that you can upgrade by literally just picking up a thing that reveals a good thing and then cover up a thing that shows a bad thing, and that's such a like it's so beautifully intuitive and so satisfying to move all the little tokens around. It really like just lights up a little synapse in my brain whenever I do that.
I remember playing Eclipse, the big sci-fi game, and in that you have loads and loads of cubes and you take them off your player sheet to reveal things as you upgrade them. And I accidentally caught the edge of mine during one game, and it just went poof into, I don't know, like 20, 30 cubes just all over the place. And yeah, since then, just having that like double layered cardboard, like you say, just to plonk them in, it's so satisfying. And also it stops me, who's a clumsy fool, just knocking things over.
I will say, Suro of the Seas, the dice as well are really nice. They've got like a nice heavy feel to them. Like my friend and I were like throwing them, obviously like rolling them on the table, and we were like, we just looked at each other and said, "That's really good. That's a really nice feel." And also, the the little Rhino Hero from Rhino Hero, the little figurine made out of cardboard. Like Habba do, not cardboard, like wood. Like Habba do really nice little wood figurines for a lot of their games. Like they do them for that, and they also have another game called Animal Upon Animal, which also has lovely little cardboard. Why do I keep saying cardboard? Wooden! Lovely little wooden figurines. The guys who do Ghost Splits as well, which aren't Habba.
It's Zach.
Yes.
Zach.
Sorry.
The little pieces in that game as well are really nice. Like the little ghost is very smooth. It makes me feel like I'm a toddler again and like messing about with all like the little pieces.
Oh, the little
Something about the word
Mysterium.
smooth ghost.
Yeah, the little Mysterium pieces are really nice as well, the little plastic things. I haven't actually managed to grab them yet, but the Disney villainous ones are always talked about as well.
I've got them. They're just really like intricate and beautiful. Actually, they're just nice to look at. Speaking of wooden meeples, actually, Men at Work have great meeples, like with the little hard hats, which are adorable.
Desperate to play Men at Work.
Yeah,
I really,
I wanna
really
play
want to play
it.
Men at Work.
It's
Because
really
if
fun.
it's anything like Junkart, then I want to play.
Junkart is great.
I think Junkart is better. Men at Work is fun. I think Men at Work is more fun to look at than it is to
More
play,
gimmicky.
in my opinion. Yeah, in my opinion, it's nice, but I think Junkart is better. I think because Junkart has like so many different levels, that you can like play so many versions of a game, which makes it really good.
Yeah.
I also really want to. Sorry, Matt Jarvis.
No, you go ahead.
I also really want to play Wingspan just because of the components in that game as well. Like the little eggs. They look like delicious, like icing eggs.
Oh, mini
They're
eggs.
so
Yeah, mini
Yeah.
eggs.
they're like little. They're very pastel coloured.
I don't know if you could tell from me talking about Infinity earlier, by the way, but I love scenery as well. I think mini game scenery is really, really nice and chunky and tactile, and especially like the wooden laser cut ones are really, really nice to pick up and place. Really
Makes me
satisfying.
want to like smash my hand through.
Why would you do that?
That's
Just
what
an
I'm
agent of
not
chaos.
letting you play then.
When
God.
you held that up to the camera, I was like, if that was in front of me, I would just really want to smash my hand through and see like, how it
Remind
would
me to
play.
never play Infinity with you ever then.
Such
Oh, gosh.
destructive nature.
Were you a kid that just walked along the beach kicking sandcastles? Just
Absolutely. Lolies, don't answer that question. I already know the answer.
well, it was a crime committed at sea, so you'll probably own up to it in a second.
Oh,
Technically, it was a crime committed by the sea officer, so I'm not a pirate. Thanks very much.
Hey, I am a pirate.
I'll also say neoprene mats is something that I like when they're included by default.
Yeah.
I hate the feel of them, but I do appreciate. Like when I got one for Star Realms, which is completely unnecessary, but I was very excited to get one for Star Realms. But yeah, I quite like it when they do mats instead of boards as well. I think that's really nice.
Oh, the Dragoon one, Lolies, is so nice. The like cloth. It's almost like a little doily that you lay out, which you play on. It's really, really nice. I love rolling things up. I think rolling things up is really nice.
Until they don't
Speaking-
fit.
Yeah.
Speaking of Dragoon, the dragons in Dragoon are beautiful.
Yeah.
They have like normal plastic versions that are really nice colours, especially like the really light blue one is like turquoisey one is lovely. But then they also have metal ones, and they're like they're proper heavy, and it's just oh yay! I actually like that was the first thing when I went to Essen last year. That was the first stand I stopped at because I was walking past, and it was the pieces and the board and everything else.
It's a
around it
gorgeous
made
board
me
game.
Stop.
Yeah.
Up
There's
there.
a-
Up there.
there's a new game called Canvas coming out. It's on Kickstarter right now, and it is gorgeous. And it's about painting, but you can hang the box up on your wall, like a painting, and you like use transparent cards to layer on top of one another to create different images, and the cards look really nice as well. So I might invest in that one.
I really like the box of Sabotage by Tim Fowers, the way it like pulls out and makes a screen that's got all these little
Yeah.
like,
Boxes that
sci-fi
are part
models
of
and
like
stuff.
the setup.
Yeah.
You don't see
like set
enough.
watch.
Yes.
Or Slide
Dice
Quest.
Oh yeah, I was going to say
Yeah,
Dice
yeah.
Forge as well. It's like it becomes a temple for the gods and stuff like that. It's very cool.
Also,
but
speaking of, sorry, go on.
And
no,
Santorini.
no, I'm about to bring things to an end. So if you want to bring one
I
last
just
thing
want
up,
to say, when you talk about transparent cards, Meehan, I don't really like the game Gloom, but I love the cards in that game.
I think they're really clever, yeah. It's a really, really smart design.
Anyway, I'll stop now. I think we could probably have this conversation forevermore.
yeah, there's some good pieces out there. We should just get them. We should do like a blind field test. Name that.
Can you
meeple.
figure out what this game component is? Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
All right, yeah, I think we need to bring it to an end there. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So thank you to everyone who sent in some questions. If you have a question for the team for a future episode, send it to contact@dicebreaker.com. Use the subject line DB Space Podcast, or tweet us on Twitter, Facebook us. We'll put out a call for questions. But hey, just let us know, what you're playing and what you want. If you want any recommendations from us, also follow us on Twitter if you don't already. At Join Dicebreaker. We're over on Facebook, which is / I think just / Dicebreaker. That might also be. Oh, I should probably know this by now, shouldn't I?
It's
Wait, that
it's
didn't answer the
at
question.
Join Dicebreaker.
Oh, it is
It
Join
is at
Dicebreaker on
Join
Facebook as well.
Dicebreaker.
But on YouTube, we're just youtube.com /Dicebreaker, dicebreaker.com. If you don't already, visit the website where we've got some really good stuff. Yes, speaking of which, what have we got coming up on youtube.com /Dicebreaker video team?
Well, Matt Jarvis, we've got a fantastic list of content for you right here. So we have a list coming up from Johnny that was going to go out on Sunday, but then we ended up pushing the Mushroom Quest a little bit earlier, so look out for that. Games that can ruin friendships. We've got the third part of Dungeon Breaker coming up, and the second part of the aforementioned Mushroom Caper. But we're also going to be, if you actually, to be fair, by the time that this video has gone out, you would have missed it, but we're going back to streaming some painting as well. And since I've got all these Infinity Minis in front of me, I suppose I should probably jump in on that.
Well, I just hit my microphone there for a little bit of added pump.
Should we also mention next week's special?
Yes. So, for Star Wars Day, which is, of course, May the 5th. Yes, on May the 5th. So, yes, Star Wars Day. Star Wars Day is May the 4th, but on May the 5th, as part of our 2-day little celebration, we'll be streaming some Scum and Villainy RPG, which is not an official Star Wars RPG or associated. Don't come after us or the creators, Disney. Oh gosh!
By using the hashtag May the 4th, you legally agree to play an official Star Wars RPG.
Oh gosh, that'll be next though, won't it? Disney will own Twitter, then we're all in for it. But yes, we'll be streaming some Scum and Villainy RPG live, which is 11 a.m. Eastern time on youtube.com/Dicebreaker, which is 4:00 p.m. UK time, BST. On May the 5th, the Star Wars Day, the other Star Wars Day, the better Star Wars Day.
May the fist be with you.
Goodness.
And then, as Lolies mentioned earlier, we'll have some Deadlands coming up as well at some point in the future, along with all the things you love from Dicebreaker. We'll have some more stuff for you. And then on the website, on dicebreaker.com, we will have, from one Alex Meehan, we'll have a list of the best video game board games coming up.
That's why I was talking about XCOM.
Yeah.
Wink, it might be on that list.
Already up is my review of Oriflamme, which I, like I say, enjoyed very much, but you can read a little bit more there. We've got a preview of Sea of Legends just before it hits Kickstarter next week. And then at some point, Alex Meehan, you spoke to Matt Mercer of
I did.
rival D&D series, Critical Role.
Yeah, very much rival. I'd say we're on the same
Those
sort of
punks.
battling.
Right.
I imagine us having that like dance up. What's that? From what movie is that? Where there's
Step up to the streets.
To the streets, yeah.
That's good.
The one where there's like
Bring it on.
boys.
Bring it on.
The Jets and the
That one?
Sharks, do you mean?
Never mind.
Pitch Perfect.
No,
Yeah.
it's the where the two lads. There's like two rival groups. And
You
they
know, the
dance
two
up.
lads.
The Jets and the Sharks from...
No, there's like two
what's it
different
called?
groups of lads.
High School
West
Musical.
Side
Is that
Story.
Yeah, the two groups
Yeah.
are the Jets and the Sharks.
No. Anyway, move on.
From the one that's got...
West Side Story.
Yes,
West Side Story.
That
That's
wow.
what I was telling you about.
I literally just said West Side Story.
Yeah, I think that's us. That's like
Good
Anyway,
Lord.
I spoke to Mr. Matt Mercer, who is the DM for Critical Role.
he's the
And
leader
he-
of the other.
Yeah, he's the leader
West
of the
Side
pack. You know him well. And he wrote the guide to Wildmount. I've been calling it Wildermount, but it's not that.
Yeah, I thought it was what amount, but apparently not.
D&D book that was released earlier this year. If you want to know more, there's a preview thoughts piece on the website about it as well. But hopefully there should be something coming out soon about that particular conversation. And I don't know if we mentioned it last week, but my interview with Eric Lang went out as well.
Yes, I think we mentioned it. It would have just been live then, but yeah,
Yes.
you wrote up a preview of Ankh Gods of Egypt, which I think is still live on Kickstarter, isn't it? It's made
Yes, it's
a
still
bunch of
live.
money.
Yeah, it's made
who
some
would have-
money.
Who would have thought it? But
Yeah.
he seemed to really enjoy. I really enjoyed that chat you had with him about gods and going for a beer with like Osiris and stuff like that. He seemed like a good chap.
Did you finish the interview with "Thank you very much, Eric Lang"?
Oh no.
No, you didn't.
Opportunity missed there.
Yeah, maybe I'll send him an email being, hey, maybe you should have No. I
For
won't.
future interviews.
And then to finish off, something very special, which should hopefully, I teased this a couple of weeks back, but it should, who knows in this climate, it should be live by the time you read this. This doesn't work on the older audio version. We're all standing up. We're wearing some of the new t-shirts and slightly older t-shirts going up on the Dicebreaker merchandise store, online store that is, which is, we'll have a link on our social media, we'll have a link on the website, but there's the Wood for Sheep ? So Wood for Sheep shirt, which some folks will know from previous events and conventions. There's the Luck Be a Lady.
Lolies.
Yeah.
It would have been funny if you'd worn like all the t-shirts and just keep taking them off one after the other.
I feel bad for anyone listening to the audio version of this podcast.
If you want to experience this joke in high definition,
720p.
so there's Wood for Sheep, there's Luck Be a Lady, which are the two shirts we launched last year, which are both very good, and then we have two new shirts.
Woo!
One of which is Big Deck Energy, for all you trading card fans out there.
Yeah.
Matt Jarvis's best ever joke.
Yeah, Matt Jarvis.
Honestly, I peaked, and I'm going to ride this wave for as long as I can. And then we have Be Nice, Roll Dice,
Yeah,
which I think kind of sums up the tone of Dicebreaker and what we're here to do. So those should be Be Nice, Roll Dice, and Big Deck Energy. If we get my pronunciation right there, they will be live on.
Don't say it if you're from New Zealand.
They'll be on the merchandise store. Well, they should be on there now by the time you're listening to this, and then we'll have the slightly two older shirts coming in the next couple of weeks as well. And we already have some plans for merchandise to follow that, which is very exciting.
It's
and
very
I can't wait for
exciting.
everyone to see that stuff. So yeah, that's where we're at. But
Yeah.
we'll be back. We'll be back next week
Loli's done now. She's
on the
tired.
Dicebreaker podcast, and it definitely will overrun again. But we'll be back next Friday with another three of the team and myself. But until then, thank you for joining us, Wills.
Yeah, very, very, very excited to talk about all these things.
He gone straight back into Benoit Blanc. There you are.
It's been a fantastic podcast.
Thank you, Alex Meehan.
It's been wonderful.
And thank you, Alex Lolies.
Thank you very much.
I've been Matt Jarvis. Thank you for listening, listeners.
Thanks,
And
Matt.
have a lovely day.
Have a lovely day.
Bye.